Who can say they're a piano pop innovator these days? Well, this guy, that's who.
To say Ben Folds is good with his hands is an understatement. A multi-platinum selling singer, songwriter and producer, he first found success as the frontman of alternative rock trio Ben Folds 5. Going on to have a thriving solo career spanning multiple studio albums.
I'm rocking the suburbs, just like Michael Jackson did.
Having collaborated with many famous faces, Ben most recently teamed up with an ensemble of talented New York musicians known as Y Music. And that brings them to town for a tour that will showcase the old and the new.
Please welcome Ben Folds. Oh, Ben. Welcome back to Australia.
Good to be here.
Lucky for us, you've been here many times. You've even lived in Adelaide.
Yeah, I did.
How hard is it to con so many awesome musos to get on that huge flight all the way down to Oz?
I don't know. People like to come here. They're into it. They're good.
They love it.
It's this, and they like to drink, so it's good.
It's a long flight to get a lot in. Yeah.
Just when you're in Adelaide, let's go back to Adelaide. Were there a lot of burst water mains when you're in Adelaide? There's kind of a big issue in Adelaide. Does it stretch back to when you were there? I'm not saying that you're to blame. There's a lot of burst water mains happening in Adelaide at the moment.
Water's always been a problem there.
Why? Is it the bottles? Is that why the collection of the bottles? Or the...
I don't know. I haven't been there in a while. The last time I was there, it was just that there wasn't a lot of water was the problem.
All right.
Okay.
I do feel like you're making him accountable for a lot of Adelaide stuff.
Yeah. It's better now, though, because people used to always ask me about churches and murders.
That's water.
Yeah.
And Adelaide. Yeah.
Well, Ben, back to music. I mean, you've toured solo with Ben Folds 5s, many artists. What made you choose Y Music?
Oh, they're just amazing. I mean, the luxury of playing with some of the best musicians that you can imagine, you know, and they're like a rock band. They are a classical, but their way of approaching music is very much like a rock band, so we understand each other.
The results are stunning, and I mean, you collaborate with so many different people. I mean, over the years, Shatner with Common People, of course, Kesha. I love the Nick Hornby album you did. You did the Fraggles as well. I mean, that's... So how does it work? Do you get on the phone and call these people and say, listen, can we work together? Do they call you, or how does it...
It's usually circumstantial. Stuff just sort of happens. I think I'm willing to collaborate with someone who I think might have something to offer that you wouldn't guess. You know, like working with William Shatner. I felt like we could make a touching record, and that's not, I think, the way most people would have approached it.
Right.
Yeah.
But to think, well, he's not going to be singing, but you're talking about, a 75-year-old guy at a time who'd really never told his story. So there's a lot of potential in, storytelling there. So, and he's funny anyway. I had to keep him from being funny.
Right.
He's like, that's funny, Bill, but like, there's something serious in here, because it's always going to be there. So just toning it down a little bit.
So what astonishes me about your stuff is just the range of it. It's extremely eclectic. You've done Ben Folds 5, which was effectively punk rock without guitars, right? And now you're doing classical stuff. Your latest album, Still There, is still #1 on the classical music chart, right? So this is incredible. So there's so many questions I have about that, but one of them is, how did you learn to like that much music? I mean, it's one thing writing it. People, I think, they're in a field. I like pop, or I like hip-hop, or whatever. It seems like I could chuck just about anything at you, and you'd be able to like it.
I don't really, I'm really offended by people categorizing music at all. Like, that doesn't bother me, but I don't think I quite understand it. When I work with musicians, usually after you get past the semantics of how you're putting the music together, it's very similar. And so to me, it's like, well, if I've got this at my disposal, let's do it. I mean, we could make a record right here.
If I said death metal, could you just go at that?
Let's release it.
Did someone record that?
You'll be #1 in the classical music charts for ages, because Mozart hasn't released anything for years. Just ride that home.
Yeah, the competition. I don't have to compete with the dead Germans, which is...
He also recently shut his Instagram, so he's got no hope of becoming better. But the way you play the piano is also, you really smash that thing.
Yeah.
Are you a frustrated drummer or a frustrated guitarist or something?
I was a drummer first, yeah.
I
was a drummer first, yeah. And I play it like that. Oh, I look fat now.
Get it off, get it off.
Ben, you're also a wonderful advocate for music education and music therapy, which I love. Why do we need music in our lives, particularly in schools?
Well, I mean, if kids are kind of made of the stuff, and it's, you know, your brain, most of it is planted with music. The area of your, you know, speech, the Broca's area is very small, and the rest of it, I guess, a lot of metaphor was probably formed when we were becoming humans, you know, and to let the kids have that abstraction of communication, I think is really important. It ties together lots of ways of learning. At the same time, it's not for every kid, you know, but a little bit of it's good, you know. And I felt when I was a kid, I was bored with a lot of music classes, you know, but I'm happy that I did it, and I understand more about learning and light way. Yeah.
And the song Brick, which is perhaps your most well-known song, and my kids on piano, they've all learnt. That's learned Brick. It's like Chopsticks, Star Wars, and Brick. I mean, does that feel like? Are you aware of that? That how many kids are learning
of that? No, I didn't know that. Actually, I never thought about like that. Seems like kind of a bummer of a song.
It's a really heavy topic, obviously, but we'll take a look at that song. Like, obviously, it was about a friend's abortion at school.
Yeah, no, it was, you know, a friend. That's, yeah, it was my experience. I mean, I wasn't, but you know, it's like it was part of my you know, my high school years was that happened to my girlfriend, and yeah, you know, I didn't plan to write about it, but we were finishing our second album, and I don't know, it just sort of came out really quickly. I think if it had been the beginning of the album cycle or the beginning of the album recording, I may have edited it out. I might have decided, because I'm a pretty private person. But when you're in the studio and you're not in front of people, and you're like, oh, okay, that's my diary and that's a song, and then, oh, that's coming out.
Yeah,
you know?
wow.
And as soon as we turned it in, the record label's like, oh, that's the one. We've got that one. Okay.
Yeah, it's cracking. Just quickly before we go, I know you're a Billy Joel fan. One of the things I heard Billy Joel talk about is when he was touring, he'd have a song come to him and he'd run into the nearest music store and just demand to sit at a piano and play. Have you ever done anything like that when you're on the road and you need access to...
I've never really demanded anything. I don't really write on tour that much.
Really?
Yeah, and I kind of set aside time for that. I wake up every morning with a tune in my head, for sure, that I don't know, and it's usually, it sucks most of the time. But then when I have an album, I just do it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you do it extremely well in so many different ways. Ben Folds with Why Music. You've got the national tour this week, starting in Brisbane. Back at the website for details. Would you please thank Ben? Oh, we're out of time. Sorry. That's a show. Thank you for being here.
Family